Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. Here, we're going to talk about a woman who left a profound mark on late Qing Dynasty history, Consort Zhen, the beloved concubine of Emperor Guangxu. Her story is filled with legendary elements, romantic affection within the Imperial palace, but also a tragic fate that reflected the inescapable realities of her era. Who was Consort Zhen, really? How deep was her relationship with Emperor Guangxu? Why did she become a victim of court intrigue? And what reflections does her story leave us with today? Let us travel back through time, step into the Forbidden City during the late Qing period, and slowly unveil the real Consort Zhen. A woman whose life and death still stir deep emotions in history. According to historical records, Consort Zhen was born on February 27, 1876. In the second year of Emperor Guangxu's reign. She belonged to the Manchu-bordered Red Banner and bore the Tatara surname, one of the 8 prominent Manchu clans. Her family was highly influential in Qing society. Her grandfather, Tatara Yute, served as Viceroy of Huguang and Minister of War, a position roughly equivalent to today's Minister of Defense. Her father, Changshu, was a Right Vice Minister of Revenue, similar to a Deputy Minister of Finance today. In short, Consort Zhen came from a prestigious background. She was truly a noble Manchu lady of elite upbringing. Her half-sister, Consort Jean, shared the same father but had a different mother. They were close in relationship, though very different in personality. From a young age, Consort Zhen displayed an exceptional liveliness and intelligence, qualities that would later shape her experience in palace life. Her childhood included a particularly unique chapter. Her father passed away early, and she, along with her sister Consort Jean, was taken to live in Guangzhou under the care of their uncle Changshan. At the time, Guangzhou was a very special place in the Qing Dynasty. From the mid-18th century up until the First Opium War in the early 19th century, it was the only port open to foreign trade. Western merchants and cultural influences flowed through the city, making it economically vibrant and more open-minded than the inland regions. Though Changshan was a military official, he enjoyed socializing with scholars and literati. His home was often filled with esteemed guests, engaging in discussions about poetry, literature, and the latest ideas. In such an environment, Consort Zhen was exposed to many novel concepts, including Western science and culture. This broadened her horizons far beyond that of the typical aristocratic maiden, and nurtured her outgoing, open-minded personality. She had a passion for music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and was particularly skilled in calligraphy, producing beautiful handwriting that drew admiration from many. Later, when Changshan completed his post in Guangzhou, he brought Consort Zhen and Consort Jean back to Beijing. Even after returning to the capital, Changshan remained dedicated to their education. He invited his friend, the scholar Wen Tingshi, to be their private tutor. Wen Tingshi was an enlightened thinker, who would later become an important figure in the reformist movement, playing a key role in the political struggles of the late Qing Dynasty. While teaching Consort Zhen and Consort Jean, Wen not only covered the 4 books and 5 classics, but also shared many progressive ideas, such as Western science and political theories. These educational experiences greatly broadened Consort Zhen's worldview, and sowed the seeds of her future support for Emperor Guangxu's reform initiatives. Thus, it can be said that her upbringing blended the elegance of Manchu nobility with a free-spirited intelligence that defied tradition. In 1886, Emperor Guangxu began the process of selecting new concubines. In the 4th selection in 1888, both Consort Zhen and Consort Jean were chosen, and officially entered the Forbidden City. At the time, the Tatara family put in considerable effort to secure good positions for the 2 sisters in the palace. They even aimed for the Empress's title. It was said that they tried to pull strings through Li Lianying, the powerful head eunuch close to Empress Dowager Cixi, hoping that either Consort Zhen or Consort Zhen could be made Empress. However, during the formal Empress selection ceremony, Emperor Guangxu, under Cixi's implicit guidance, handed the Jade Rui scepter, symbolizing the Empress position, to his cousin Yahenera Jingfen, Cixi's biological niece, who was later conferred the title Empress Longyu. As for the two sisters, they were granted the titles Concubine Jin, Jinpin, and Concubine Zhen, Zhenpin, respectively. Not very high in rank, but managing to secure a foothold in the harem was already a significant achievement. There was also a widely circulated tale about the imperial selection. It was said that in the final round, Emperor Guangxu actually favored the daughter of Dexin, the governor of Jiangxi, and wanted to make her empress. But Empress Dowager Cixi disagreed, worried that Guangxu might become overly infatuated with one woman. She simply eliminated both of Dexin's daughters from the selection, and instead chose Consort Zhen and Consort Zhen to enter the palace. This seemingly casual decision ended up changing the entire course of Consort Zhen's life. In the first lunar month of 1889, Consort Zhen and Consort Zhen officially entered the Forbidden City, and were given the titles Zhenpin and Jinpin respectively. At the time, Consort Zhen was only 13 years old. Consort Zhen was 15, Emperor Guangxu was 18, and Empress Longyu was 21. Though still a child, Consort Zhen quickly became a ray of light in the palace, thanks to her intelligence and liveliness. At that time, Emperor Guangxu's harem was extremely simple. There were only 3 women, Empress Longyu, Consort Zhen, and Consort Zhen. Longyu, being his cousin, had grown up with him, and their relationship was more familial than romantic. Although Guangxu respected her, there was no emotional or physical intimacy. Moreover, because Longyu was Cixi's biological niece, Guangxu always felt she was a spy planted by Cixi to monitor him. So he kept his distance on purpose. As a result, their marriage remained cold and indifferent, with no real conjugal life between them. According to some popular folk accounts, on their wedding night, Emperor Guangxu reportedly said tearfully to Empress Longyu, "Sister, I will always respect you, but I truly feel so helpless." This revealed the emperor's deep inner conflict. Empress Longyu had a dull personality, and struggled to master the complex court etiquette. For example, even the way one walked, the swing of ornaments, and the angle of bows were all strictly regulated. But she frequently made mistakes, to the point where even Empress Dowager Cixi was at times visibly displeased. In contrast, Consort Zhen was quiet and cautious. After entering the palace, she kept a low profile and quietly went about her life. Consort Zhen, however, was completely different. She was cheerful, bright, and witty, quickly capturing Emperor Guangxu's attention. Initially, the emperor remained somewhat guarded around both Consort Zhen and Consort Zhen, fearing they might be Cixi's spies as well. So he kept his distance. But over time, Consort Zhen's sincerity and sense of humor gradually melted his defenses. She would play chess or paint with the emperor, and sometimes even dress up in male attire to amuse him, bringing rare laughter to his life. The emperor's life in the palace was extremely stifling. He had to handle heavy state affairs daily, while constantly enduring Cixi's oppressive presence. Consort Zhen was like a beam of light, bringing him rare moments of joy. Her quirky charm and genuine nature offered the emperor a precious sense of emotional relief amidst his monotonous palace life. Just how favored was Consort Zhen? According to Qing Dynasty rules, only the empress could officially share the emperor's bed, no matter how favored the other consorts were. They were only allowed to stay overnight in the Sangsatang Hall near the Hall of Mental Cultivation, Yangxin Dian. Consort Zhen stayed in Sangsatang so often that it was said she spent more nights there than in her own residence. Emperor Guangxu's affection for her was unmatched in the entire harem. Consort Zhen not only accompanied him in leisure, but also helped with administrative matters, assisting in organizing memorials and copying documents. She had excellent calligraphy skills, and often helped the emperor write plaques and scrolls to reward court officials, something very rare for a consort in the imperial harem. Thus, Guangxu's reliance on her went beyond romance. They also shared a deep synergy in everyday life and even in matters of state. Interestingly, Empress Dowager Cixi initially also liked Consort Zhen. Consort Zhen was intelligent and quick-witted, bearing some resemblance to Empress Dowager Cixi in her younger years. She could even write with both hands simultaneously, which made Cixi feel a special fondness for her. Cixi even went so far as to assign a court female painter to teach Consort Zhen how to paint, allowed her to write large calligraphy characters like Fu, Lu, Shou, blessings, prosperity, longevity, as gifts to officials, and even had her help in reviewing palace documents. According to some historical records, Consort Zhen's performance in the palace far exceeded that of Empress Longyu. Empress Longyu's personality was dull, and she often made mistakes in ceremonial protocol. As a result, many rituals that should have been presided over by the Empress were instead handled by Consort Zhen at the directive of Empress Dowager Cixi. For example, at major palace celebrations, it was often Consort Zhen who stood in for Empress Longyu, managing everything in an orderly and efficient manner. Cixi's affection for Consort Zhen at one point even surpassed that for Longyu, which placed Empress Longyu in an increasingly awkward position. In 1894, during Empress Dowager Cixi's 60th birthday, Consort Zhen and Consort Jean were both promoted to higher ranks, becoming Consort Zhen, Zhenfei, and Consort Jean, Jeanfei. That year, Consort Zhen was just 18 years old, and had already firmly established herself in the inner court. Her emotional bond with Emperor Guangxu deepened further. They often discussed poetry and calligraphy, and even shared thoughts on current political affairs. Thanks to her experience in Guangzhou, she had some familiarity with Western culture. She would talk with the emperor about Western science and ideas, which made Emperor Guangxu admire her even more. However, everything has two sides. Starting that very year, cracks began to appear in her relationship with Empress Dowager Cixi. One major reason was her interest in Western culture, which brought trouble. Growing up in Guangzhou, Consort Zhen was no stranger to Western influence. In the mid-19th century, photography was introduced to China, and Consort Zhen became deeply fascinated by it. Palace life was dull and monotonous, so she arranged to purchase a full set of photographic equipment, and asked eunuchs to help her take pictures with Emperor Guangxu. Sometimes, she would even dress in male clothing, and once even wore the emperor's dragon robe just for fun during photo sessions. These photos, by modern standards, would simply seem amusing. But at the time, it was a serious breach of decorum. In the conservative and feudal Qing court, cameras were considered Western witchcraft, and strictly forbidden inside the palace. When Empress Dowager Cixi learned of this, she was furious. She punished Consort Zhen and had her camera destroyed. Despite being young, Consort Zhen was headstrong and didn't stop there. Later, she even instructed palace eunuchs to open a photography studio outside Donghua Gate. When this was discovered by Cixi, the involved eunuchs were severely punished, and the studio was forcibly shut down. Cixi began to feel that Consort Zhen was becoming increasingly disobedient, and wanted to teach her a lesson, though the relationship had not yet completely broken down. Another growing issue was Consort Zhen's extravagant lifestyle. Although Qing Dynasty consorts had fixed stipends, as a titled consort she received 300 taels of silver per year. Yet she was known for spending lavishly, particularly on Western luxuries like cameras and foreign clothing. And often found herself spending beyond her means. To cover the shortfall, she began looking for ways to increase income. One popular rumor was that she became involved in selling official titles. In the late Qing Dynasty, this was not illegal, it was called zhuanna, contributions for rank, and was a common method for raising funds. Many people obtained official posts by donating money. For example, Sheng Xuanhuai, a leading figure of the self-strengthening movement, was one such donation-born official. According to historical records, in the 9th year of the Tongzhi reign, 1870, Sheng Xuanhuai entered Li Hongzhang's administrative office, which marked the beginning of his career in industry and education. He not only helped establish China's first large-scale civil shipping enterprise, the China Merchant Steam Navigation Company, but also personally founded many pioneering businesses and schools, such as China's first telecommunication company, the Tianjin Telegraph Office, China's first inland navigation company, the Shandong River Steam Navigation Company, the first north-south trunk railway, the Luhan Railway, the first Chinese-run commercial bank, the Imperial Bank of China, the first modern steel and coal conglomerate, the Han Yiping Iron and Coal Company, China's first polytechnic university, Beiyang University, now Tianjin University, as well as Hubei Mining Bureau, Huasheng Textile Mill, and Nanyang Public School, now Shanghai Jiaotong University, among others. Thanks to these self-strengthening achievements, Sheng Xuanhuai not only became one of the most important industrialists in late Qing China, but was even regarded for a time as the richest man in the country. Some estimates suggest his wealth reached 20 million taels of silver. As his reputation grew, so did his political career. He successively held important posts such as Tianjin Customs Commissioner, Vice President of the Court of Judicial Review, Associate Minister of Commerce, and Minister of Posts and Communications. On April 27, 1916, the 5th year of the Republic, Sheng Xuanhuai died in Shanghai, bringing an end to his legendary and accomplished life. Now, let's return to Consort Zhen. Her involvement in the sale of official positions was different. It crossed the line into interference in state affairs, which was a major taboo in imperial politics. It said that she collaborated with her brother Zhirue, gathering information about vacant posts and then matching them with potential buyers. Consort Zhen would then put in a good word before Emperor Guangxu to help the buyers secure favorable appointments. According to popular rumors, she once received 40,000 taels of silver from a wealthy merchant in exchange for the post of Shanghai Circuit Intendant, a lucrative position at the time due to Shanghai's booming economy after its opening to foreign trade. There were also claims that she sold the position of salt controller in Sichuan to an ignorant and unqualified merchant. The salt controller oversaw salt affairs, and salt taxes were a major source of Qing revenue, making this a highly profitable post. Whether these rumors of selling posts were true remains disputed to this day. Some believe that Consort Zhen was indeed involved, and that Empress Dowager Cixi had her quarters searched and found ledgers, prompting her to punish Consort Zhen in anger. But Consort Zhen argued back, claiming she was merely imitating Cixi's own example, a veiled criticism of the Empress Dowager's involvement in politics. This infuriated Cixi even more, and she demoted both Consort Zhen and Consort Jean from the rank of consort, fei, to noble lady, guiren. However, others speculate that the allegation of selling offices might have been fabricated by Cixi as a pretext to suppress Consort Zhen. After all, neither Emperor Guangxu nor Cixi pursued the matter deeply, and their ranks were restored the following year. Regardless of the truth, the relationship between Consort Zhen and Empress Dowager Cixi had completely soured, planting the seeds of future disaster. In 1895, after China's defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War, The Qing government was forced to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki, ceding territory and paying heavy reparations, further weakening national strength. The loss was a heavy blow to Emperor Guangxu, who resolved to reform and revitalize the country through a program of new policies. Although Consort Zhen had already been disciplined, she fully supported the emperor's reform efforts. Her cousin Jirue and her former teacher Wen Tingshi were key figures in the reformist faction, and she introduced both of them to the emperor, helping to shape the core of his 100 Days reform. Although Consort Zhen may not have directly participated in the reform movement, her encouragement and support for Emperor Guangxu were obvious. She would accompany him in discussing reform matters, and even help organize proposals from the reformist faction. Emperor Guangxu grew increasingly reliant on her, which in turn made Empress Dowager Cixi more wary of her. In 1898, Emperor Guangxu issued the Edict for the Clarification of National Policy, drafted by Wang Tonghe, officially launching the 100 Days reform. However, the reforms challenged the vested interests of conservatives, especially Cixi's own power. The reformists acted too hastily. Some even proposed imprisoning or eliminating Cixi, a dangerously extreme idea. Cixi soon caught wind of the plot, staged a coup, placed Guangxu under house arrest in Yingtai, and executed the 6 Gentlemen of Reform, bringing the movement to a complete and tragic end. Consort Zhen was implicated as well, although she did not directly participate. Her relatives and teacher were key figures in the reformist camp. Cixi was convinced she was the force behind the scenes. Consort Zhen was demoted again to noble lady, and confined to a remote courtyard in the northern part of the Forbidden City. The living conditions were harsh, the doors were locked, with only a small window left for food delivery. Her treatment was no better than that of a servant. At the time, she was given only plain meals, and even her trips to the toilet were restricted. During festivals, someone would come on behalf of Cixi to reprimand her. From then on, Consort Zhen lived in complete isolation, her past glory feeling like nothing but a dream. In 1900, as the Eight-Nation Alliance invaded Beijing and chaos erupted, Empress Dowager Cixi decided to flee westward with Emperor Guangxu. Before leaving, she ordered that Consort Zhen be brought before her. Even after 2 years of confinement, Consort Zhen held on to her dignity, and took the time to wash and dress properly. Cixi told her that due to the chaotic situation, she could not be taken along. For the sake of the royal family's reputation, she must end her life. Consort Zhen pleaded her case, saying, "I am not guilty enough to warrant death." She even boldly stated that the emperor should not be running away, displaying her characteristic stubbornness and courage. But Cixi had already made up her mind. It is said she ordered her chief eunuch Cui Yugue and palace maid Wang Dehuan to push Consort Zhen into a well inside the palace. Thus, at the age of just 25, Consort Zhen met her tragic end. Her belongings, including photographs taken with Emperor Guangxu, were destroyed. This is also one of the main reasons no photograph of Consort Zhen exists today. Official Qing records claimed she took her own life to preserve her chastity, and posthumously restored her to the rank of consort. But the truth is clear to most. Consort Zhen, her elder sister, survived the political storm by staying low-key. She lived carefully in the palace, avoiding involvement in any disputes. Later, after Emperor Guangxu returned to Beijing and learned what had happened to Consort Zhen, he was heartbroken. It said that he took one of her hairpins, and would often sit and stare at it, lost in memories of their time together. In 1908, Emperor Guangxu died at the age of 37. The official cause was illness, but many later speculated about the real reason for his death. Shortly afterward, Empress Dowager Cixi and Empress Longyu also passed away. In 1913, Consort Zhen finally had some authority, and relocated Consort Zhen's remains to the emperor's mausoleum for consorts, allowing her to rest eternally beside Emperor Guangxu. Perhaps this was her final tribute to her beloved sister. It's worth mentioning that a widely circulated photo, featuring a woman with short bangs and Han-style clothing, was once believed to be Consort Zhen. However, scholars later concluded it was unlikely. The short bangs hairstyle, called mantiangsing, stars all over the sky, was fashionable among Han Chinese women at the time. Manchu women, like Cixi, Longyu, and Jin, typically wore center or side partings. As a Manchu imperial consort, Consort Zhen would never have sported such a hairstyle. Thus, that photo is most likely not her. Her true appearance remains a mystery to this day. According to some historians, Consort Zhen's life leaves us with much to ponder. She was a woman full of contradictions, bright and spirited, deeply loved by Emperor Guangxu, yet also drawn into the deadly currents of palace politics due to her bold personality. Her story is not just a personal tragedy, but also a mirror of the Qing Dynasty's decline. In that era, individuals were often swept along by power struggles and historical tides. Even emperors and imperial consorts could not determine their own fates. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.